So I wanted to see if I could take a block of firm tofu and turn it into this. Well, not exactly this. I was trying to make bacon, but this is what I came up with, and it ended up being pretty good. So this whole test started with a block of firm tofu that I just drained, and then I just pressed it into just like a scramble. I don't know why I did it this way. I could have done it with a fork. Now this idea is based on my last few tofu videos where I flavored some tofu and then kind of like dehydrated it and then rehydrated it again while cooking, and it ended up making a very meaty texture. I thought that could be the way to go here. Now, I could have weighed this, but again, it was all a test. My idea was to take about a third of the tofu to use as like the fat, and then the rest of the tofu is going to be in the meat side. So now we just want to flavor the meat side up with our normal bacon seasoning, which is just 1 teaspoon of onion powder, a teaspoon garlic powder, 2 teaspoons smoked paprika, dash of MSG. You don't need that. You can add some like mushroom seasoning if you want. I'm using a little bit of cocoa powder here because I want to make this a little bit more meaty, and then 1 teaspoon of liquid smoke and 2 heavy teaspoons of maple syrup. Now I messed up there, only add 1, that was too much. Now I'm going to finish it off with about a teaspoon or 2 of liquid aminos or soy sauce and then mix it up. You can see it looks pretty meaty.
Okay, so to get this tofu bacon recipe to work, we are going to need some sort of like tofu press or just some sort of like box, there's a million ways you're gonna be able to do it, but you're gonna have to kind of like press this together, and it's gonna have to be in something that's gonna form it. Now you could probably just use some cheesecloth, wrap it up really nice and tight, you know, into like a shell, and then put some stuff on it to press it and let it rest. But if you have something like this, some sort of tofu press, it's gonna make this work a heck of a lot better.
Now I'm gonna use a tofu press, but I'm gonna add some cheesecloth as well, just to make it a little easier to pull the tofu in and out. So we're gonna start with adding just a small amount of the tofu. It's a little over a tablespoon. And then we're gonna spread that into a layer and then add a small amount of vital wheat gluten, about a teaspoon, and then spread that out into a layer. Now I just kept repeating this until all of the meat side tofu was all done. It ended up being about 6 teaspoons of vital wheat gluten in total. Now my thought is that the vital wheat gluten will get hydrated up and start to form bonds as it's being pressed, as the pressure is on it. I think that's really going to create like really cool layering, which is going to give it more of like a meat-like texture. Now for like the fat side, I just added the plain tofu back into the same bowl, added a pinch of salt, nutritional yeast, and a little cap full of olive oil. Now I wanted the fat to be a little denser and not like all of these individual little like lines or strands of gluten fiber, so I just added a teaspoon of gluten right into the fat side and a teaspoon of whole psyllium husk. And we're just going to mix that in, and I'm hoping that's going to create like a dense, you know, the fatty side of bacon. Now for all my screenshot people, I didn't forget you. Here's the ingredients. So now all we're going to do is just add the rest of that fat mixture on top of the meat side mixture over top of that gluten that was sitting there. And we're just going to fold this up and seal it up and toss it in the freezer for a few hours. I want it to be frozen enough to where I can get nice slices, but not too frozen to where it's too hard to slice.
Okay, so it's not totally frozen, but it's mostly frozen.
Well, that's what I thought, but really this was barely frozen. I started pulling it apart and it felt like it was frozen around the corners and like on the top a little bit, but really like the sides wasn't frozen at all. And then when I kind of started to cut away the cheesecloth, because the gluten did form and it actually stuck to the cheesecloth. So I tried to give it a slice and really it just, as you could see, boop, fell apart. I mean, it really wasn't ready to be sliced. So I just pulled that one slice off. I can see that the gluten was forming really nice, exactly how I expected. So I pulled all the cheesecloth off because I could see that the gluten was going to stick to it, and then I just wrapped it up in a small piece of parchment paper, back in the tofu press, and then back in the freezer. I'm hoping I can get this frozen in the next few hours.
Hey gang, real quick, right now is a great time for some mud, today's sponsor. Mud water is a coffee alternative with 4 adaptogenic mushrooms and Ayurvedic herbs. Now, I've been drinking mud water in the mornings and sometimes early afternoon for about a year now, and I'll tell you, I love it. Mud water is a drinkable ritual that addresses your mind, body, and soul. It's as versatile as your morning coffee without the anxiety or midday crash. Mud water can be made in a variety of ways. Make it into a latte or just add a tablespoon to some hot water, whatever your preference. With a fraction of the caffeine of a cup of coffee, you get to enjoy mud all day long without impacting your sleep. I love that. Mud Water kindly sent me their starter kit, which includes a 30-serving tin of mud, USB rechargeable frother, and a free sample of their vegan coconut creamer. Mud includes ingredients such as cacao, chai, lion's mane, chaga, and cordyceps, which offer a huge range of benefits, including helping your mood, focus, physical performance, and your immune system. It's 100% USD certified organic, non-GMO, gluten-free, plant-based, along with it being Whole30 and kosher. And after you've drank all your mud, your tins are recyclable too. So gang, try Mud Water today and get 15% off your starter kit by clicking the link in the description below and using my code SauceStache5. Mudwater, thanks for sponsoring today's video and providing me with some mud water in my cup. I love it.
Now, after about 3 hours, I pulled it back out of the tofu press. It felt frozen, not as frozen as what I wanted, but I went ahead with it anyways, and I started to slice it. Now, the first slice came out pretty decent, so I started to just go from there. It still felt brittle. It was definitely more brittle than what I wanted. After about 7 or 8 slices in, it started to thaw out too much, got a little bit too brittle, kind of started to fall apart, and I was about to just throw the towel in and just give up on this whole thing. But then I decided, what would happen if I dehydrated the slices and also dehydrated part of the slab? Maybe I can slice it after it's been dehydrated. So I took the slab that we had remaining, the rest of the slices, and threw them in the oven at 225 degrees and let them go for about 4 hours. Now you can see after about 2 hours, I started to flip the bacon slices and they were getting drier. They were getting definitely more firm. They were looking pretty good. Now after 4 hours, everything was dehydrated. Everything was fairly tough, kind of rubbery. Nothing looked like bacon by any stretch of the means at this point. But the texture is exactly what I wanted. It's holding together. It seems like it's very firm. It's kind of leathery. That's exactly what I was looking for. Now when I started to slice through the rest of like the block, it was a little tough to kind of get through because the outside was dry, but the inside was still tofu. But it was holding together in really great slices. Really what I wanted out of this. And you could see the slice looks awesome. Definitely has like the fibery, meaty kind of textures along with like the fat kind of side. So now I'm gonna just fry up both versions of this. We're just gonna start with a hot pan and a little bit of olive oil and then toss in the dehydrated version. Now I'm gonna let these guys go first because I think they're gonna take a little bit longer. I'm gonna cook these similar to how I made like the sandwich and everything. So we're gonna toss the bacon in the oil, let them fry up on either side, and then once they're fried up and they've might have soaked in a little bit of that olive oil, then we're just gonna toss in just a touch of water and cover them up and let them steam. Now for the sliced version, I just went with a non-stick pan with a little bit of olive oil over like a medium heat, and we're just gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna add a little bit of pepper to them. I did on the last one, I forgot to tell you. And then we're just gonna kind of constantly turn these until they brown up. Now at this point, the fully dry steamed versions are done, so I'm gonna give these a try. I mean, they look pretty good. They seem like they're gonna be chewy and crunchy. I have a feeling we're gonna have some pretty good tofu bacon here.
Wow. Okay. There's not a lot of crisp, so I will say I'm missing the crunch. There's a little there, so I'm not gonna say it's completely lacking. But the texture finally nails it, like meaty texture. And the flavor really is, I'm pretty happy with it. I think if this was in a sandwich, I'd be pretty stoked about it. This is good. Okay, so now let's test the other version. And then we're filming pretty late at night. Monica's done for the day, but I'm just gonna get her to try it off camera. I mean, that's a good looking bacon strip. I'm pretty proud of that. I'm not saying that it looks 100% like bacon. I'm not saying that before you try to troll me. I'm not saying that looks like bacon, but it has a nice meaty look to it. Okay, the texture of this one actually works a little bit better, I think. But they're both nice. This one has maybe a little bit more of a crunch, but it's not as dense or as chewy as this one, but it still has enough of it. I think this version is gonna be the winner. So try that one.
Okay. That's nice. Yeah, I like it. It's nice and chewy.
Does it taste like bacon?
Yes, it does. Like, it tastes like a nice chewy bacon.
Okay, now try this one.
I like that one too. I like the first one better.
Okay, you heard it. Monica liked the crispier bacon, the dehydrated bacon. I liked the unhydrated bacon. Really, they're both good. They both have really good like chews and crunches. I think you can do either one of these. If you are getting frustrated with like cutting this, I do think if I would have froze it for a little bit longer, more firm than what it was, I think it would have been a heck of a lot easier to do. Does tofu make really good bacon? I mean, I think so.